The first railway budget of the newly elected Narendra Modi government is out, and sticking to his pro-development, pragmatic approach over populism is what Mr. Modi seems to have done. It's a tightrope walk. Here, of course, are the details.
Need better facilities? Pay for it. This is the bottom line laid out by Modi's minister today.
The bleeding cash-strapped Indian Railways has been injected with a dose of realism. Fares have been delinked from the politics of populism and linked instead to fuel prices, thus insulating railways from inflation.
Among the many corrective steps that I have planned out, fare revision was one which was a tough, but it was a necessary decision.
You might have thought that the prospect of shelling out more for their tickets would have upset the public, but that's not entirely the case.
Women protection thing it's a great idea for people traveling alone. I think it's like a big boom.
Police facility also there, but they are not doing anything. But if Lady Constable will be there, it will be safe for us.
He hasn't stopped at that. Modi will raise money from the markets to turn the railways around, first via the FDI route, then through PPP. But this has upset the opposition, who now claim that all these steps are aimed to favor big business and burden the poor.
इस बार का रेलवे बजट इस बात को सिद्ध करेगा कि देश के विकास में रेलवे एक अहम भूमिका निभाता है।
ऐसा लगता था कि ये रेल बजट नहीं, पर रेलवे की निजीकरण करने की कोई योजना है।
जितनी भी ट्रेनें चल रही हैं बड़े शहरों तक, वो हर तरह की सुविधा से संपन्न है। उन्हीं इलाकों में ज्यादा इसमें जोर दिया गया है।
रिटेल मार्केट एफडीआई, डिफेंस एफडीआई, रेल एफडीआई, টোটাল দেশটা বিক্রি করে দিল। সবচেয়ে সহজ তো, আপনার বাড়িতে খাবার নেই, আপনি কি মেয়েটাকে বিক্রি করে দিতে পারেন?
खुद संचालित नहीं कर सकते हैं रेलवे को, तो पीपीपी, एफडीआई, इन्हीं सब चीजों के और प्राइवेटाइजेशन ऑफ कोर्स, इन्हीं सब चीजों के जरिए जो है आपको काम करना पड़ेगा।
रेलवे जो लाइनें हैं, पटरियां हैं, उनको दुरुस्त नहीं किया जाएगा, ठीक नहीं किया जाएगा, और आज की जो वर्तमान जो स्थिति में जो रेल की पटरियां हैं, उन पर ये जो हाई स्पीड ट्रेन चलाएंगे, मैं समझती हूँ ठीक नहीं हो।
Modi believes that if he implements the services he is promising to deliver, the public will not grudge. Paying a little more after all, they will cherish the experience of travelling by a world-class railways that's both comfortable and secure.
Modi's budget might just be a trailer ahead of the big day, which is Thursday. The first straw in the wind indicates that Modi prefers pragmatism over populism, which is precisely why he seems to favor a model which says, pain now, gain later. With video journalist Pawan, this is Seema Call for NewsX Delhi.
Well, has he picked, therefore, pragmatism over populism? Raging debate in political circles amongst experts on some of the bold steps that he has taken. Bold because they haven't been attempted before. Specifically, freeing fares from political control, from political meddling, interference, what have you, as also going to the market to raise money instead of throwing good money after bad. Let's open this out for debate. Debate that has been raging outside now will rage within our studios. Joining us, Nalin Kohli, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, MP of the Congress and former MOS Railways, Mr. Jay Panda, MP of the BJD with us this evening, Mr. Sugoto Roy, MP of the Lok Sabha from the Trinamool Congress, and of course Shankar Iyer, senior journalist with us. Let me begin by asking Mr. Jay Panda. Mr. Panda, it is being widely believed that Mr. Modi has been bold. He's eschewed populism, delinked passenger fares from political interference. He's moving in the right direction, and so is the railways.
But clearly, the railways that this government has inherited has very serious problems, in the sense that for many, many years, tough decisions were kept being put off. And as a result, the financial condition of the railways, the kind of service it provides, the simple sanitation, the safety, all of these are issues of serious concern. So it's not an easy job. Now, all of us obviously have a wish list which can't be fulfilled. In Odisha, we had a wish list of more than 3,000 crores investment for various projects to take our rail connectivity up to the national average. We are way below. Even though that has not happened, the 1,400 odd crores that has been allocated for Odisha projects represents a high. It's 10% of the 14,000 crores earnings that the railways gets in Odisha. So I think it significantly acknowledges that there are many areas of the country that needs to be brought up to the national average. Another example being the Northeast, for which very large allocation has been made. These are welcome steps, and the thrust given to technology and forward-looking plans are good, but they need to be pulled off. It requires discipline and requires focus to ensure that they are pulled off.
So you're overall happy and you believe that he's erred on the side of pragmatism. Would you go ahead and say that, sir?
I would say that I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I'm very happy that my constituency is going to get its first railway line ever. The Haridaspur-Paradip railway line, which has been sanctioned 187 crores. And I was just telling you about Odisha.
There are others in the opposition, sir. There are others in the opposition, Mr. Panda, like the Congress party, the largest opposition party, that believes that this is an exercise in hypothecating the railways' assets to private business. Do you share that cynicism?
Well, it's much easier to point out problems than to point out solutions. All of these issues have been known for a decade now. No solutions had been forthcoming. I think it is pragmatic that the railways has to access every option of raising funds, of raising investment. I don't think anything should be considered as not worth exploring, because the country desperately requires infrastructure. So on that front, I would say pragmatism is the right way to proceed.
Okay, let me bring in the TMC MP before I go across to Nalin Kohli. I'm trying to get a sense of where the opposition stands. Mr. Kohli, if you bear me out. Mr. Shragota Roy, why is the TMC upset with this budget? Why were you protesting so vociferously in the well of the House?
Number one reason is that the railway minister did not promise any reduction in the hike in passenger fares, which was announced earlier by passing the parliament. As I may repeat that in 5 years the TMC has held the railway portfolio, we have not increased passenger fares. We think that in a system where 20 million people travel on railways every day and most of them are poor, the government has a responsibility of ferrying them at a cheap cost, at a subsidized cost, which the present government is refusing to do. Number two, the railway budget positively neglects the very important state of West Bengal, which has 3 railway headquarters in it, in the allocation for new trains. Only 1 new train has been promised, and the West Bengal CM has said that we can well do without it. 3, it has deliberately tried to kill the projects which were already working in the state. And if I give you an example, that for a project in my constituency where earlier 2,000 crores were allocated, he is allotted only 20 crores. Now this is a gross insult and an attempt to kill the projects which were announced.
So perhaps
during the
patronage.
TMC railway ministers.
No, perhaps
times.
Patronage.
And lastly, please let me complete, then you ask me. Patronage. Hello?
No, you wanted to make your point, I'll come back with my question.
Hello?
You make your point, sir. Make your point, I'll come back with the question. Go ahead. Make your last point.
Now, I'll make my last point. If they really think that 90 projects were started in the last 10 years and only one has been completed. His job should have been to Railway Minister job, should have been to see that as many of these 90 projects that can be completed should be completed. Instead, he has announced grandiose new projects like bullet trains, which will cost 60,000 crores. He has given 100 crores. He has suddenly announced a diamond quadrilateral with high-speed trains.
Okay.
If there are so many projects really pending, and if money has been spent on them, they should have concentrated on completing the project. And this, lastly, I think that this whole budget is an apology for increasing passenger fares, for bringing in private investment and foreign direct investment in the name of lack of funds, opening the doors for Adanis and Ambanis to get into railways, and also
repay the favor.
Foreign direct investment.
Okay, so you're trying to hint at the fact that favors have to be repaid.
Doesn't give a single new idea.
Okay. Now let me bring in Mr. Nalin Kohli of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I think you made
5,000 crores
4 or
was the
5
money
elaborate points. Fair
spent
enough.
on the BJP campaign that has to be paid.
Okay,
back.
okay. Let me bring in Mr. Nalin Kohli. Mr. Nalin Kohli, 5 points have been made. The chairman of the Railway Board is also here to explain the rationale behind some of these moves. But as a spokesperson of the BJP, where do you stand on these 5 points?
I'll come to the political point last, so that we don't lose sight of the bigger questions or the more important ones here. First is, let's start where the railways is. India inherited a railways which had 54,000 kilometers approximately of rail lines in 1951. Over the last 67 years, approximately 11 or 12,000 kilometers have been added, and that comes to about 164 kilometers per year. China added about 14 or 15,000 kilometers in 5 years preceding 2011. So rolling stock, which another expert, all these figures I've heard only from experts of the railways who've been speaking on channels. He pointed out that the rolling stock was about 400,000 in 1951. It's down to about 2.5 lakh. Railways used to lose about 10 paisa per kilometer per passenger about 11 years ago. Today it loses about 23 paisa per passenger per kilometer. And of course, there's cross-subsidy on freight, which has reduced from about 90% to about 30% of the total. So freight, which used to be a very important component. The railways has a serious problem with an operating ratio of 94, which means for every 100 rupees that the railways earns, it spends 94 on its current expenses.
Were all other options, were all other options exhausted?
Let me finish.
No, but were all other...
Let me finish.
No, the central question is... The central question is, were all other avenues exhausted before penalizing the passenger? I think that is what Sugata Roy is trying to say here.
I will come to it. Mr. Roy was, just as you heard Mr. Roy patiently, allow me the same patience. I don't seek anything extra. So let me go back to where I was. So out of the operating, 602 crores is, I think, the grand amount that the railways will have at the end of this year. So let's go one by one. The first question to start with is, why is the railways in such a position after 10 years of UPA rule and after 67 years since independence? Number two, completing 90 projects. This is not a patronage. This is about saving the railways and giving India a railways that it deserves. A railways that also the poor can use and be guaranteed that they reach home safely without security and safety being compromised. A railways that also delivers to the aspirations of India, which, you know, the bullet trains is probably a reflection of that.
Okay.
Services and security and safety is paramount for the passenger. With regard to the nation, it's about having a railways that serves India and India that serves the railways. The Prime Minister has spoken on that at length. Now the question is, if these options were available, all our political opponents who today are there offering advice, the first question comes, why didn't they implement this so-called sound advice when they were sitting in office and Trinamool Congress for 5 years, out of the 10 years that the UPA was there?
Okay, let me ask
So I think the bottom line is, that a government has come in, and today Mr. Sadanand Gowda is setting... No, let me finish my point. I have 2 more points to make. So coming back to this. So therefore, government has come in, it has said its intent, put its intent on paper, and as Prime Minister Modi has said, we are trying to look at the railway not piecemeal about one new project being allotted there, which cannot be implemented, but looking at the overall health of the railways.
So the
last point, which was the political point that Shogotada made, I'd just like to say, well, let me just finish my last point on the political point, which I reserved for the end. I'd just like to say one thing, that the big noise that the Trinamool Congress perhaps did is to remove focus from the august ideas of their MP, Tapash Pal. And I can assure you, Railways has now added or is planning to add a sizable number of ladies who will be there to protect ladies so that anybody from the Trinamool or so on who picks up the advice of Tapash Pal will not be able to harm the ladies on a train.
Okay, that's a lateral attack, but Mr. Shogoto Roy, I just want to ask you, Mr. Dinesh Trivedi, your own MOS, one of your own MOSs in Railways had suggested that the way out would be via the media
not full
of
minister, not a MOS.
Was via media of a fare hike. But he was shown the door. So he pointed you in the right direction. Nalin Kohli says for 5 years you were handling the railway portfolio as in your party as part of the UPA. You could have implemented all of this and left the railways in a better shape, but you failed to do so.
No, you're totally wrong. We held the railway portfolio, the TMC, for 3 years. Dinesh Trivedi did increase the fare, but that fare rise was rolled back because Trinamool Congress does feel that in a poor developing country, passenger traffic should be subsidized.
Okay.
We believe that increasing the burden on common people through hike in railway fares is not the way for railway finance. Rather, the railway should find innovative ways of finding finance, for instance, in utilizing railway land, in utilizing railway property for development, for advertising, for using the railway connectivity for increasing this cable
Mr. Shankaraya,
connectivity.
do you agree with this logic? There are two contending points of logic.
All these innovative ways we have tried in our time,
but failed. So let's try a new. Approach.
Banerjee started the Railtail Corporation.
But Mr. Roy,
setting up world-class stations with
the counter argument is,
but with the bureaucracy that we have in the railway board, outmoded bureaucracy, it's difficult to change anything without totally overhauling.
Mr. Roy,
horrible, inefficient,
there is another direction. There is another direction. There is a new government.
As much as we wanted to, but we started a lot of good work.
I want to bring in
did
Shankaraya.
not put a burden on the poor people.
No, I want to bring in Shankaraya. Shankaraya, there are two problems here with the hypothesis that is being sort of spun out. One on the BJP side, one on the TMC side. The first problem is that it seems that all the options were not really exhausted before deciding to palm off the burden of subsidizing the working of the railway on the passenger. Correct me if I'm wrong. On the other side, of course, is this sort of notion that the railways must be a sort of gravy train that chugs through the heart of India, dispensing largesse to political parties, the interest of political parties, various leaders, etc., and not the interest of India and its people. Sir.
Well, the political parties will try to make this into a contest between crony capitalism and crony socialism, and I think Indian Railways deserves much better attention than this. I mean, if you look at the budget, it's been done very strategically. The price rise which was done a couple of weeks back was part of this budget strategy, that you push the price up, get the noise level up, persuade the people that there is no other way out. The first part of the railway budget, if you notice, dealt with the complete bankruptcy of that organization and what needs to be done. Now, what this budget does is it attempts to bring private solutions to what are necessarily public problems and public failures.
Right.
Now, this budget is long on promise and short on details. We will see the details how it comes through. But I have no hesitation in saying that the pragmatism is welcome, but we need more details. And while we are at it, we need to redefine populism. There is a whole section of people out there who have aspirations of better train travel, better communication. I mean, you travel anywhere in the world, you have clean stations, clean trains, and all that is taken for granted. And here in this country, none of that can be taken for granted. So populism can be seen differently. I mean, so there is a bit of appealing to that youth, the aspirational nationalistic group, and there is the idea of a technologically savvy India that's being pushed through the high-speed train.
Let's ask Jai Panda what he believes, what he thinks. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary also joins us of the Congress. Mr. Jai Panda, I want to ask you straight off the bat, do you believe that Mr. Modi has erred on the side of pragmatism by deciding to delink fares from political interference? Isn't that the step in the right direction?
Well, to be fair, I think the Prime Minister's campaign before the election results came out was based on getting the economy back on the rails, as it were. His number one priority, he has been communicating for the last 6 weeks, is to fix the domestic economy, and the railways is a very crucial part of that economy. And unless its economics are in the right shape, it has a tremendous sort of domino effect on the economy in terms of freight, in terms of our manufacturing sector, and so on and so forth. So yes, the decisions that have been taken are certainly risky in one sense, in the sense that unless the
You're not answering my question, sir.
Better...
You're sitting on the fence very firmly. You're not answering my question directly.
No.
I'm asking you, is it a welcome is it a welcome move to delink fares from political control and link them to the price of fuel directly? So there is incremental increase or decrease as we go along. Straight question.
Straight answer is yes, it's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
But with a caveat, when you do this, you also have to consider that the very poorest of the poor who get very affected, people who are migrant workers who go from one state to another state, depend on the railways, they have to be given some kind of a lifeline. And in that sense, I think this government is looking at options such as targeted cash transfers for the poorest of the poor. It has not yet taken a decision. I think they go hand in hand. You can't just take one decision which raises the cost without looking at the impact.
Well, I'm glad that you haven't approached this from a completely partisan point of view, Mr. Panda. Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, thanks for joining us. I want to ask you straight off the bat. Here
Rahul
is an individual. I'm coming to you, Mr. Kohli. Let Mr. Chaudhary come into the debate. He joined us late. We also have, of course, Mr. Arunendru, who is the Railway Board Chairman. He's been listening on very patiently. Mr. Chaudhary, what's the problem? There is an ally of yours in the opposition, or well, not an ally, but certainly somebody who warms the opposition benches with you, the BJD, and they don't think there's a problem with delinking, passenger fares from political control. Why are you so upset? Why is the Congress so upset? Is it only now opposing for the sake of opposing?